Classroom the Elite is one of my favorite series of all time. If you have been watching my channel, you would know that I have made a bunch of Classroom the Elite videos because that just shows how much I love this series. However, like any other series, it is imperfect, and I'm fully aware that there are things that could have been done better in the series. And today I'll be talking about one specific arc or one specific volume that I consider my least favorite volume / arc of the Classroom the Elite series, and that is the training camp arc, or of course, like some people know it, volume 8. Now, something that I need to get out of the way is that I am fully aware that volume 8 is important for the story because there are things that are mentioned here that will happen in the future in the following volumes. However, just because it's important for the story doesn't mean that it was interesting. Of course, there have been countless examples of other series having not so great arcs or having arcs that are completely uninteresting and are pretty forgettable. One arc I could use for the example of being a disappointing arc was Naruto's Tenchi Bridge arc. I've seen a lot of mixed opinions over this arc, but the majority have agreed that this is probably one of the most disappointing arcs of the series. And this wasn't a filler arc, like this was an arc that had things that were going to be canon for the series. And if we're talking about filler arcs, I know filler arcs aren't important to the story, but filler arcs can also be bad as well. One I could think of as well is Fairy Tail. Yes, I've watched Fairy Tail, and I remember there was this one arc that was easily the most forgettable and unnecessary arc in the Fairy Tail series, and that was the Celestial Spirit arc. I mean, I remember watching that arc and finishing it, and I had to ask myself, why did I even spend time watching that arc if nothing really interesting happened? Like, it was really one of those arcs where it was unnecessary to watch. Like, you could easily skip this arc and you'll be saving yourself a lot of time. I know filler arc can sometimes be good, but this is a case of a filler arc being really bad. But anyways, back to the topic of my least favorite arc in Classroom the Elite. The training camp arc is hands down one of my least favorite arcs of the series. I know people tend to say that volume 2, which is the expulsion arc, was their least favorite, but I'll give that an exception because that is when the series was starting. Of course, volumes 1 and 2 are mostly going to be focusing on showing us the characters of the series and the world that we're about to read. So volumes 2, while I do understand some people's issues with the expulsion arc, I'll give it a pass because, like I said, the series was just starting, so eventually they were going to have to introduce us to characters and show us the world that is Classroom the Elite. But the same can't be said for volume 8 because really the entire volume really felt like a chore to read, and that's mainly due to the characters we spent a lot of time in this volume. So I didn't really have an issue with the test. I know people in the internet are saying how the test in this volume wasn't the greatest. To be fair, I wouldn't have had an issue with this test if it wasn't for the fact that they did separate the boys and the girls. This test was gender based, meaning that Ayano Koji was mostly going to spend his time with all the other male characters, and I also realized that most likely Ayano Koji wasn't going to be talking a lot with the female characters of the series. But I would have let it pass if at least Ayano Koji's group was interesting to read. But sadly that wasn't the case because in Ayano Koji's group it had Koenji, Hashimoto, Ishizaki, Yukimura, and Albert. Now, to be fair, Koenji and Ayano Koji are probably the most interesting characters out of this group, and I'm not saying characters like Ishizaki, Albert, Yukimura, and Hashimoto are terrible characters. The problem is that these characters haven't had a lot of spotlight like Ayano Koji and some of the members of Class D, so when they do get the spotlight, you're not really interested in them because you don't really know that much about them. I mean, at the time, the only thing I knew about these characters was that Hashimoto is working with Sakiyanagi, Albert and Ishizaki are part of Ryuen's group, and that Yukimura is a very intelligent person and is part of the Ayano Koji group. That's about it. That's all the information I know about these characters during that time. So when you put these characters that I don't know that much about in the spotlight, I'm not going to instantly care about them because, once again, I don't know that much about them. Now you may be saying, even though Ayano Koji's group isn't the greatest, surely there are going to be moments in which Ayano Koji does talk to other members of Class D. Well, unfortunately, there's barely interactions with him talking to the other members of Class D. Like, for example, for the other male characters of Class D, he doesn't have a lot of conversations with them. Like, he doesn't have a conversation a lot with Hirata, not even Sudo, which at that time he was getting his character development, but he doesn't have any conversations with him. And like I mentioned earlier, he barely has any conversations with the female characters of the series. Like, I remember he only has like a couple, one of them being with Ichinose, which wasn't really that important. It was just him trying to see how she's handling the test, in which it seems that she's doing fine. It seems that she's trying to get along with the people that are in her group, but just trying to get along with people in general. So there was that. Then there was a brief conversation Ayana Koji had with Sakinagi, in which she kind of reveals what she's been up to, and it's very clear based on what she's saying that she is planning to do something with Class B. More specifically, she has her eyes on Ichinose, and it's very clear that she is up to something, but like typical Sakinagi, she's not going to reveal her plan. Now you may be saying, well, what about a conversation with Kei? Surely Ayana Koji is going to have a big conversation with Kei. No, he doesn't have one. He only has like a few. And one of the important things about it is Ayana Koji tells Kei if she knows anything about the whole situation with Sakinagi and her group, to which Kei responds saying that it seems that Sakinagi accepted girls from class A, C, and D, but not from B, proving more that there is something going on and that Sakinagi is actually planning on doing something involving class B of some sort. And another thing that was important was when Ayana Koji instructed Kei to observe some people that he is interested in. But apart from that conversation, there's really nothing else. Like after that, there's little to no conversations between Ayana Koji and Kei. Now I know someone's gonna make the argument that the boys and girls can't talk unless during their lunch break, which is only their free time that they have being together. And to that I say you're right, but once again, it doesn't change the fact that there could have been chapters of Horikita, Ayana Koji talking and how they're dealing with the test or stuff like that. Or heck, we could have gotten chapters of the girl groups talking about what they think of the test and what they think is going on. That would have been an interesting read. I would have been interested in seeing how the other groups are dealing with this exam, because apart from this, there's barely any interactions with the female characters. In fact, there were two parts of the novel in which we do focus on, for example, Ichinose's point of view, and then we get a chapter of Horikita's point of view in which she's talking with Kushida. That would have been interesting if there was something interesting going on, but basically in these chapters, Ichinose is just pretty much saying how she's trying to get along with everyone and she wants to get along with everyone, things that we already know, and it's not surprising that she's acting like this because we know Ichinose is a very nice person and she's trying to get along with everyone in her group. And then with the whole situation with Horikita, in which her chapter was mainly focusing on Horikita trying to get Kushida to be on her side, which unsurprisingly, because it is Kushida we're talking about, she refused to join with Horikita and be on her side because she hates her, which is not really a surprise because we know Kushida hates Horikita. We know that their relationship isn't great. So I don't really understand why we needed this chapter, because it's something that we've noticed ever since we realized Kushida's true personality, that she doesn't like Horikita, but we've been knowing that. So I'm not really sure what was the point of this conversation if we know that this wasn't going to happen. We know that Kushida wasn't going to join sides with Horikita because she's made it very clear that she doesn't like Horikita. Now I know I've been giving a lot of reasons as to why I don't like this arc, or it's my least favorite arc, but there are a few positives that I do have with this arc, and one of them being is the introduction to Nagumo. Nagumo has been hinted that there's clearly something going on with him, and it's very clear that there is more things about Nagumo that we don't know during that time, but he very clearly showed in this arc that he's a very intelligent person. Like, he wanted to figure out why Manabu was so interested in Ayana Koji. Ayana Koji tried his best to shrug it up like it was nothing important, but it's very clear that Nagumo wasn't going to let Ayana Koji slide. He wanted to see why Manabu was so interested in him. Not only that, but Nagumo in the end reveals how he actually had a secret plan all along during this whole exam, which was to make sure that Tachibana, who is close with Manabu, to get expelled from the school. Now, thankfully, Manabu does save her because he does use the points that he had in order to save Tachibana from being expelled. But this just goes to show what Nagumo is capable of, and it's very clear that Ayana Koji realizes that Nagumo is a very intelligent person and is somebody that he should probably keep his eye on, because who knows, this person might become a threat. So now Ayana Koji is now really seeing what Nagumo is really trying to do and how he is going to affect the school, because remember, Nagumo is going to be the next student council president, so it's very clear there's going to be a few changes in the school as soon as he is the next student council president. And the other good thing about this arc as well was the interactions that Ayana Koji had with Koenji. Like I said, Koenji is probably like the only member of Ayana Koji's group that is the other interesting one, and that is because we really don't know what to expect with Koenji, but he did do a lot lot of interesting things in this arc. Like for example, when he was having his conversation with Ayana Koji, he reveals that he knows that Ayana Koji isn't a typical person. Like he's clearly hiding something, and it's very clear that Ayana Koji has skills, but he just doesn't want to show them. Of course, Ayana Koji is now cautious with Koenji because it seems like he is somebody that he can't really predict what he's going to do next, showing us that Koenji has a lot of mystery around him, and it's very clear that Koenji is a very smart individual. In fact, he might be the other smartest person in Class D apart from Ayana Koji. And the other thing that's interesting about this conversation is that it's very clear that Koenji is not afraid of Ayana Koji. I mean, I'm not really surprised. I mean, he did insult Ryuen and Sakinagi during the whole thing where Ryuen was confronting him and Sakinagi was there to witness everything. So it's really not surprising that he's not afraid of Ayana Koji as well. But apart from those two things, there really isn't a whole lot of interesting things to happen. And let me remind you that this light novel is over 300 pages. That's right. 300 pages, and like only two interesting things or two things that I actually did like about it are here. The rest is just either uninteresting or easily forgettable. Like this is the only volume I had to reread again to see what actually happened, because the only things I remember from this novel was the Nagumo stuff and Koenji, and that's pretty much it. The rest I had to actually reread to remember what actually happened. So overall, while this is an important light novel for the series, it's my least favorite arc. The training camp arc is my least favorite arc in Classroom the Elite. And it's a shame because I know people, like I said, had issues with the test. They didn't really see the test as interesting. But there was other issues apart from just the test. I think there were so many things that could have been done more better. You may be asking, if I was to rewrite this, what would I have done? Well, for starters, I would have made Ayana Koji's group more interesting. I would have kept Koenji and Ayana Koji in the same group, but replaced either Albert or Ishizaki for Ryuen. That would have been an interesting group, because I feel like Koenji would have probably noticed that Ryuen has changed ever since his interaction with him during volume 7. Like I feel like if that were to happen, Koenji would have probably figured out that something happened between Ryuen with another person, and this is Koenji we're talking about, so he probably would have guessed that Ayana Koji has something to do with that. But this also could have created even more interesting conversations with Hashimoto, because there was actually a part in this that I really did enjoy. There was a private conversation between Ryuen and Hashimoto in which Hashimoto admits to Ryuen that whoever is in Class A, he would join that class, meaning that he's actually fine with betraying Sakinagi. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure if that were to happen, he would like be destroyed by her, but it goes to show that Hashimoto only cares about being in the winning team, and as of right now, he is fine being with Sakinagi. But if Ryuen's class or Ayana Koji's class ever happens to be in Class A, he is going to do whatever it takes to get to that class, even if it means betraying Sakinagi. So with that in mind, I would have been creating some interesting conversations between Hashimoto, Ryuen, and even Ayana Koji and Koenji if they were in the same group. Another thing I would have done was give Ayana Koji more interactions with the female characters. Sure, I understand that there was like that whole limited time to be together, boys and girls, but even still, there should have been more interactions with the other characters. Maybe a conversation between Hiyori, Ayana Koji, or Horikita, maybe even Kushida. I don't know, just any character that I actually do know and I have seen throughout the series, not characters that barely have gotten the spotlight. That would have been much more better. Or if they weren't even going to do interactions with Ayana Koji with the female characters, maybe just do chapters that dedicated to seeing how the girls were dealing with the test. I don't know, we could have gotten a chapter with Horikita and her group, how she's dealing with it, or maybe having a chapter with Kei, seeing how she's dealing with her group. And heck, I would have loved to see a chapter in which the girls from Sakinagi's class are questioning why there's no Class B members in Sakinagi's group. Obviously, it might be tactic reasons, but who knows, maybe some people from Sakinagi's group might think that Sakinagi is actually hiding something and she's making a plan to deal with this exam. That would have been very interesting to see that kind of conversation happen. I feel like with those kind of things, that would have probably made this volume even more better. They probably would have made this training camp arc more interesting to actually read. But of course, they're just my ideas. It's not like it's going to change anything. I mean, the volume's already done. It's not like the author is going to like rewrite volume 8 just because some people aren't happy with this volume. But I'm glad this is probably the only arc that is my least favorite. The rest are fine. I liked every arc of Classroom the Elite. Even volume 9, like as soon as volume 9 happened, like it was instantly good to read once again because it was much more better than volume 8. Like I'm glad that the quality of the series didn't dip after volume 8, because that would have been like really sad to see one of my favorite series start to like, you know, not be great after one not so great arc. So I really am glad that volume 9 wasn't like volume 8 where it was boring to read. I enjoyed reading volume 9 and onwards. Even like second year has been great so far. There hasn't been a volume in second year that I have not liked. Even like volume 2 of second year, which I know is a setup volume, but even then that arc was really good as well. Like I enjoyed that arc much more than the training camp arc in volume 8. So yeah, those are the reasons why volume 8, the training camp arc, is my least favorite arc of the Classroom the Elite series. But other than that, the rest is great. I've been enjoying Classroom the Elite. Everything about this series is fantastic. I'm curious how the anime is going to adapt this arc, because if you don't know, volume 8 came after volume 7.5, which is where Classroom the Elite season 2 stopped. So I'm really looking forward for maybe some original scenes in this arc. Who knows, because as of right now they've been following everything from the light novels. I haven't seen too much of anime original or new content being added in the anime, but who knows, maybe they will do it in this arc. Only time will tell. So I'm really looking forward to see how Classroom the Elite season 3 is going to be, especially since this is going to be the first arc that's probably going to be shown, because this comes after, once again, 7.5. So I'm really looking forward to that. And with that, that's pretty much the entire video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.